Nothing has changed in this area. Right here, we're still using the electronically controlled gearbox to go from high to low on the threshing system. Right, we control that right from the cab. Now, on the Treon combine, one nice new addition there, and I wish we had it on the 400s, 500s, and 700s, is the addition of a hydraulic control. So all I have to do on a Treon to go from high to low on the threshing cylinder is I take my wrench, and there's a valve block that's mounted right on the back side of the returns elevator, and you'll see the decal with the rabbit and the turtle. You just rotate that gearbox, or that valve 90 degrees to go from high to low. You don't have to mess with those bolts anymore on the Treon. So that's a nice feature to have on the Treon. While I'm on the Treon, one thing you'll notice on the Treon is when you look underneath the panels, it is a much simpler combine. All the drives on the Treon are spec'd to Class 7 capacity. All the drives on all Lexions are spec'd to Class 10 capacity. So we refer to it internally as a top-down. So all the drives that are on the Class 6 and 7, 7400 and 7500, are the same as these 8000 series are using, whether it needs it or not. You're just getting some really heavy-duty drives for the capacity of that combine when you get into the Class 6 and 7. So that's why you see the 2 and 3 stage belt drives on the left side of the Lexion, and you do not see those on the Treon because it doesn't need all that heavy-duty drive capacity. So it's a much simpler design, considerably lower number of belts on that combine as well. And that's one of the reasons why the cooling system is the way it is, because it doesn't need to have that high capacity cooling that the big engines need, and we just carry that right down to the Class 6 also. So that's why its cooling system has been optimized to the Class 7 capacity that combine has. So it's a much simpler design because of that. And that's why when you look at it, we didn't put any of the in-cab controlled features on it. So we just kept it simple and put all the in-harvest zerks on grease banks so that you can access those a lot easier, as the auto lube is not an option on that combine. So back here on the clean grain elevator and the returns elevator, just a couple maintenance items here. One thing that did change on the moisture sensor is you see the harness right here has been rotated 90 degrees to the right. That's the way to prevent any rainwater from getting into that sensor. What I would recommend doing is if your combine has been sitting outside, I would loosen up the bracket here and then open up and then loosen your Phillips head screws, the 4 right here, and open that up, make sure there's no water in there. Spray it with some brake cleaner or contact cleaner, non-chlorinated, and make sure it's dry and put it back together. You might seal it up too, but just make sure that is sealed off. And if you can, just rotate your harness 90 degrees so you don't get any water going down inside that sensor. So this apparatus, the moisture sensing apparatus, is very similar. It's the same basic fundamental design as what's on the yellow combines. It does have its readings may be more frequent because it is using a new yield sensor on this combine. So when it does take its reading, the solenoid fires, the cylinder will extend downward, pushing this block down into the chamber to swab it out, and at the same time it'll open the trap door and it'll push all that grain and material that's in the chamber back into the clean grain elevator. So now there is no set screw on the end of this solenoid like there was on the yellow ones, where you could actually stand down here and cycle it. You can open the door in the cab, watch through the mirror, turn your separator on and then back off and watch it cycle. And it should go down and back up really quick. If it's very slow to go down, you might have some kind of restriction inside the block right here that might need to be cleaned out. But it should go right down and right back up really quickly. Right here is your fuel water separator and your manual lift pump. The Treon does have an electric lift pump, and I noticed out here on the pre-series combine, that 8800, it has the same electric lift pump on it also. So looks like there's going to be a change coming to that for next year. Also, on your combines, you don't have the 3D canister on the side. You're using the electronic slope sensor. It's on the front axle, and that 8800 on the side also has that. It no longer has the canister. It's using an electronic slope sensor that's on the front axle also.
Still does the 3D 7 like that?
Yep. Yep, it does the same thing, but it's being controlled. It's got electronically versus by gravity from the pendulum.
What's 4D?
4D, what 4D does is 4D uses the rotor cover plates. Now you'll have to have additional rotor cover plates instead of the 2 standard that we all get for the corn belt. There's 2 more. So as the combine leans to the right or the left, what those will do is they'll counter that and pitch the material exiting the rotor cage to the high side of the rotary turns pan so that it doesn't drift down low and then overburden the low side of the cleaning shoe. So it just kind of keeps everything evenly spread on the rotary turns pan. And so that's all 4D is. But if you've got CMOS, 4D is a function of CMOS. We just pulled it out of CMOS to allow it to run as a standalone feature for those that don't want CMOS. And then there's also another feature called auto slope. And what auto slope does is as the combine pitches forward or back, it'll adjust the fan speed accordingly. So if I'm going downhill, it's going to increase fan speed. As I go uphill, it's going to slow the fan speed down also. So that's also a part of CMOS, or can be operated independently if you have that activation on the combine. They are both activations on the combine. So down here on the bottom of the clean grain elevator, I mentioned we have a new yield sensor. We have a mass flow sensor versus the volume sensor. So we do not have the photo eyes up here anymore, like these right here on the returns. So the returns is still using those same light sensors that we used on the yield sensor. This one now has a mass flow sensor that's mounted right at the entry into the grain tank, right between the elevator and the main sump of the clean grain tank. So that means that adjustment on the front side of the elevator has to go away, because we have to maintain a fixed gap or constant gap at when the paddle goes at 12 o'clock to the deflector on top. So to do that, we had to put our adjustment down here on the bottom, similar to what competitive yield monitors use. So to tension this one, I just loosen the 4 13 mil nuts down here, and then I loosen, it's an 18 mil jam nut here on the draw bolt, loosen that up, and then I pull down. Whereas the old style tensioner was pushing up, we're now pulling downwards, similar to what competitive yield monitors have to do. Now, proper tension is just enough tension on the chain where it slides side to side with resistance. You want to be able to move it. If you can't move it side to side, then it's too tight. So back it off just a little bit so you can slide it side to side with a little bit of resistance. The same is true on the returns elevator. Its draw bolt is up on the top side, so you have to loosen that 16 mil nut right here, and then up on the top is another 16 mil draw nut to pull up on the draw bolt to tension this chain and tension it to the same specs. Just slide it side to side on the bottom sprocket here with a little bit of resistance. And while you're up here, just check the drive chain for the cross auger. Make sure that it's not too loose, and if so, just loosen that 16 mil nut and just manually pull back on that idler disc. Don't stick a screwdriver in there and over tighten it. Just pull it back with your hand and then tighten that nut up. You don't want it to be banjo string tight.